Alice, I appreciate the personalized introduction, and what I would also tell you is that today is the second time in my life over the last 5 or 6 years that I've met Alice in person. A month ago, I lost one of my best friends, who was also a friend of Alice's. And one of the first messages that I got was a note from Alice that all it said was, "How are you?" If you don't believe in the social media stuff, you're missing out. So, this is the 9th Sales 2.0 conference. I've been coming here off and on for about 7. I think, Gerhard, this is the 3rd time that you've allowed me up on the stage. I think you need to take some time off in between times, and I would understand that. What excites me about what I've heard the last day and a half now almost is that all we've talked about is the customer. We've not talked about ourselves. And to be honest, in the first few years, and you get a bunch of salespeople together, and what do we talk about? We talk about ourselves. We talk about what we do. We talk about how we do it. We talk about how good we are. We talk about how great we want to be. We talk about how we get better. But we spent several years, and part of getting to Sales 2.0 was starting to talk about the customer. We've done nothing but talk about the customer so far, and that's exciting. We've heard a lot of discussion about how buyers have changed their expectations of us. The critical point in buyers changing their expectations of us is that the longer they spend with us, the more of their time that they give us, the higher their expectation is for the amount of value that we deliver. Short amount of time, crisp amount of value. The longer they invest, the more value they expect. And it's really simple stuff. Things that you've heard, things that we've talked about, and it used to come down to, boy, we just have to ask insightful questions. And a lot of the social media gurus will talk about in the early days, well, if you just use LinkedIn so that you can do your research, so that you can ask better questions. Well, that's talking about us again, right? It's not talking about the customer. We'll talk a little bit later about adding perspective, but the customer expects us to actually be the value, not just add the value by what we say, but to embody the value that they receive. Because without that, they're not getting anything from us. So they expect from our profession for us to be the value. At MHI Global, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, we've been doing research contiguously for 13 straight years on the behaviors of salespeople and sales management and what the best in the world do. And you'll see some data coming up shortly about what the best in class do, and every year that's the top 6 or 7% of our research results. And that's defined by those who are not only performing behaviors at the top of their game, but who can connect them to the best results delivered by the people who we research. And this year, that number comes out at 23% better than all else. So the top 6 or 7% of the people in the research pool that represent best in class outperform the other 94% by 23% in business results. So it's not a small distinction. But because of this changing buyer dynamic that we've all been talking about yesterday and today, I decided to organize it into 3 ways to think about it. We've got more people involved. There's a lot of people talking about some numbers. We'll talk about some very specific numbers today. There are more people involved. It's a more formalized process. And the really key question is not just how will this group of people make this decision, but it's how will this group of people make this decision this time? Because when you have a larger group of people more involved with a more formalized process, they're not going to make the same decision the same way every time. So how are they going to make the decision this time? First behavior we want to look at: how do you connect with your customers? I suppose it starts at a simple question. Do we know how our customers buy from us? We have the benefit of having a 5-year average to look at versus the 2015 results. We'll talk about the 2015 results, which are available to you. This is the first time publicly that the 2015 research results are being shown. But we have 2015 research results available for you. Not a big difference in the 5-year averages as to whether sellers and sales managers say, we know why our customers buy from us. It still is unfortunate, the gap between best in the world and all else, that there would be a 20-point gap. Okay? Because if you want to give the hallmark of our profession, shouldn't we be able to say that we know why our customers buy from us? That ought to be on our calling card. But only at 90% confidence level can the top 6% of the sellers in the world say that. If we know why our customers buy from us, we've got these 2 dynamics that we'd like to talk about. One of them is, how many people are you required to persuade? There's not only a big jump this year, but there's a bigger gap. And take a minute to just process that, or if my countdown clock is right, take about 4 seconds. There's a jump of huge proportion amongst the top 6% of world-class participants, those who outperform all others by 23% in their business results, have recognized significantly more buying influences involved in their sales than those in the 94%. And they've just gotten that jump in realization this year. Now, you'll see us dig underneath that this year with further research and notes as to what's going on and what you do about that. But that's a dramatic jump in 1 year compared to a 5-year average, specifically amongst world-class sellers. But that's not the most interesting number in this connecting with customers. The most interesting number is, how many people in your organization are lined up with that growing decision-making organization? And even that number matches, that says world-class sales organizations are putting more people lined up with larger buying groups and are putting more cross-functional teams and larger sales teams consistently involved, directly involved in the sale. Does that match your experience? The research says that's what's going on. So number one behavior, connect. Number two behavior, collaborate. Compared to last year, our customers have significantly formalized their buying process. There used to be, on a 5-year average, a 20-point gap between world-class and all respondents, the 6% and the 94%. Now there's a 30-point gap in 1 year. It's a research model done over 13 years consistently, 5 years, the last 5 years of data versus 2015's data. Formalized buying processes, those that are the best see it much more clearly than everyone else. And where does it often come into play? It comes into play in, well, so what does this do to affect our sales cycle? And there's an even more interesting dynamic on the sales metric. The average sales cycle time is actually up for the best-in-class companies compared to a 5-year average. So maybe, and watch this space from us for more data during the year, but maybe longer is better. More buyers, more sellers addressing them, a more formalized buying process, maybe longer is better. And maybe shortening the sales cycle is not everything it's made out to be. Last behavior, connect, collaborate, calculate. Our customers require formal ROI calculations before making purchasing decisions. This is kind of a no-brainer. Everybody would say, absolutely. Every salesperson would say, yeah, how do I do that? Where do I get those numbers from? Again, used to be a 15-point gap. Look at the jump in 1 year compared to a 5-year average. Larger teams buying, more formalized process, and a 20-point jump, a 50% jump amongst the top sales organizations in the world in how the clients are expecting ROI calculations before making decisions. And yet, the rest of the 94%, and this is self-reported data. We're just not making this stuff up. This is self-reported data. The other 94% of people in the research base view it as, well, only a third of the time do we have to provide ROI data in order to get a purchasing decision made. And it's a little more. It's not quite a third more than last year. But it's a half more, and it's 61% of the time amongst the best. And interestingly enough, a place where that comes into play is it affects retention. Because what do you do to retain a customer? A customer often goes to shop you. And they go out to shop you, and they look for, number one, what's the ROI on what you've done for us already? Have you really delivered what you said you would deliver when you sold it to us? And is there someone out there that has whatever it is that's the next best thing that can prove to us an ROI case that's better? Look at the difference in retention rates between the top 6 or 7% of the companies and everybody else. Does this all make sense? Does this all connect? Question is, what do you go home and do about it? Right? What do you go home and do about it? My attempt here is, you hear a lot of anecdotal things about buyer behavior. And you're going to go home after 2 days of this conference with lots of concepts and ideas and slides that you've taken pictures of and decks that you'll get copies of and conversations you've had with people. You're going to go home and pitch some ideas inside your company. What I want you to take home is some numbers that you can hang your hats on. So that if you've got a pitch you need to make that says we need to do this and we need to change this way, and here's why. Because here's what the data says. That's all I'm looking to do. There's 3 questions you ought to ask yourself. When it comes to the fact that there's more people involved, how do you today connect with your customers? If there's a more formalized process, what are you doing to collaborate with your customers? If they're adding more people on their side, are you adding more people on your side? Are they the right people? Is it in proportion? Is it on the right deals at the right time? And in terms of whether this group of people is going to make this decision this way this time, how do you get in the middle of those politics and even the playing field with a financial discussion of value? Because all of our socializing, if it doesn't end up at value, if you listen to Dave DiStefano's conversation yesterday in his breakout, by the time that his guy ended up in a meeting with the COO of the guy at Willis, it wasn't about generalities. It was about very specific discussions of value for Willis, for his potential customer. How do you calculate that value, and what do you do to get yourself differentiated? So I said we'd offer a pre-release. We've got a copy of the executive summary of the 2015 Sales Best Practices Study. Many of you may have met our friend Joe Galvin, who runs the MHI Research Institute. The research has not been released, won't start to be released until next month, but there's copies of it available for you at our booth, and more information about our Research Institute and the things that we do, and the information that can be available to you on a longer term basis if that's something that interests you. Several of you have come up to me during the conference and said, so who's this MHI Global person? And Alice joked a little bit about Miller Heiman is MHI Global now. And so I want to spend at least 8 minutes and 38 seconds just kind of demystifying this. I met John Golden in the back of the room yesterday, who's a longtime friend. Actually, I have met first time physically here at one of Gerhard's meetings. And John used to run Huthwaite. And John asked, so how's the big project going? And so I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. We are a collection of brands that, if you look at the brands across the top, are brands that many of you may have done business with at some place in your business or another at some time or another. And actually, when we brought all of these brands together, it was interesting, dynamic. We found of all of the clients of all of our brand companies, just about a 3% overlap down at the buying influence level, at the point of impact to a company, not at a company name or a logo level, but down at where is the impact. We found about a 3% overlap, interestingly, over all of these long-standing companies in the sales performance arena. But what it's allowing us to do is, and we'll get more specific about defining customer management in a second, but it allows us to bring a lot more resources to bear. The resources it lets us bring to bear on the outside edges you would expect are the ones in the middle. And that's about customer experience. And I'll just give you the quickest snapshot I can. And that is that you have every day customers coming to you however they want to come to you, that you can't control how they come. They come to you via the phone, they come over the web, they come through your business partners, they come to your inside sales, your outside sales, they come in 100 different ways. The question is, how do you manage that customer experience? With the collection of businesses we have and the resources we have around the globe, that's the business we're best positioned to help you with. And I'll give you a quick snapshot of a few beliefs along the way. Most important decision we make is how we connect with customers, bar none. The most important thing to focus on, of all the things you could focus on in a systematic view of sales, is the things that touch the customer in the center. All of us spend time in the things around the periphery. No offense to any of all of the vendors on the outside, but a lot of the vendors that are here and a lot of the discussions we have are on systems and processes that are around the outside that all support the three core functions of things that people do that touch the customer. That's connecting with the customer. Second core belief is that methodology is everything, and it's really one very simple picture. You either have a process and a methodology and a belief inside your company that says, we believe in individual autonomy, or we believe in organizational execution. And I can tell you that your CFO and your CEO who sign your quarterlies and your annual report, or who report to your private equity owners who own the company with their own money, they believe in organizational execution over improvisation, because they believe in repeatable, scalable, predictable. And we know that world class in these perspectives outperforms everyone else by 23%. Customers expect a perspective, not a sales pitch, something you've heard over and over in the last day. Just take a quick look at what we believe perspective means. It's beyond what you know. And it's taking, in terms of perspective, and personalizing the profession of sales so that the salesperson becomes the perspective that the company brings to the marketplace. The salesperson becomes the value proposition. The best are always looking for ways to improve. And this is not a slide to talk about our clients. It's a slide to talk about if you would recognize these brands as some of the best companies in the world that happen to be our clients. The reason they're our clients is because they are still looking to get better. Every one of them is looking to get better. Every one of the best companies in the world is looking to get better. And those, to wrap up, who prepare win more and win more consistently. And it doesn't matter which particular way you have about preparing to do your work. Our research backs up that preparation wins business. 82% versus 34%. We clearly understand our customers' issues before we propose a solution. That's absurd. That a third of sellers in 94% of the population, only a third would say we clearly understand our customers' issues before we propose a solution, and that's the salespeople and sales leaders saying it. Documenting a strategy on a large deal, it's a coin toss. And collaborating across departments when pursuing large deals, we just said we've got to increase the number of people because the customer's increasing the number of people, yet our organization does not, except at a coin toss level, collaborate on large deals. That's who we are. That's what we believe. Appreciate your time today. Hope we've given you a couple little thoughts I'm going to be here all the rest of the day. I don't know that my handlers with the red light that's been blinking here for a minute and a half will allow me any questions. Alice, will we allow any questions? One. There's one right here. Your name is?
My name's Glenn Clark, and I'm with Concur.
Glenn.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, as you were going through the statistics, which they're phenomenal, by the way, one of the questions that comes to mind, since I work very closely with salespeople that sell to small to mid-sized businesses, do these numbers incorporate SMB buyers, and how are the numbers or the behaviors different for those SMB buyers?
SMB buyers are incorporated in here as long as they are a complex sale. So these numbers don't reflect transactional selling. They reflect a complex sale. And the characteristics in SMB are not significantly different from an enterprise sale as long as it is a complex sale, which is typically defined as a 90-day sales cycle or longer, 3 or more buying influences involved in the sale, that kind of general characteristics of a complex sale. Okay, and that's my one question. Anyway, I'll be around. Be glad to entertain any questions. Thank you so much for your time.